The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 6, its deep chime echoing through the silent, freezing mansion, but the chill Maya felt had nothing to do with the November draft. She stood alone in the expansive kitchen, wrapping her wool cardigan tighter around herself as the scent of sage and roasting turkey began to fill the air. The catering staff wouldn't arrive for another hour, but Maya had been up since 4, ensuring the prep work was flawless. She pulled her phone from her pocket, the screen illuminating her face in the dim gray light of the Greenwich morning. A bank notification flashed silently. Transfer complete, $50,000, catering and decor. Maya swiped it away quickly, a faint, bitter smile touching her lips. To the world, and especially to her mother-in-law, she was just James's wife, the woman who supposedly brought nothing to the table. In reality, she had just quietly paid for the very table they would be eating on. The sound of sharp heels clicking on the marble floor made Maya's posture stiffen. Eleanor swept into the room, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a silk dressing gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. She didn't look at Maya. Instead, her eyes scanned the granite countertops like a hawk hunting for prey. "Happy Thanksgiving, Eleanor," Maya said, her voice calm and steady. Eleanor didn't respond. She walked straight to the island where Maya had just finished polishing the antique silverware. With a theatrical sigh, Eleanor picked up a fork, held it up to the light, and pulled a handkerchief from her sleeve. She began to wipe the already gleaming silver vigorously. "I prefer things done the traditional way," Eleanor muttered to the empty room, as if Maya were a ghost. "No fingerprints. We can't have the guests thinking we've lowered our standards." Maya watched the performance, her hands folded patiently. She was used to this, the erasure, the subtle implications that her touch somehow dirted the family heirlooms. "The silver is spotless, Eleanor," Maya said gently. Eleanor finally turned, her ice blue eyes landing on Maya, but they didn't meet her gaze. They fixed intently on Maya's hair. It was styled in an elegant, natural afro puff, framing her face beautifully. Eleanor's nose wrinkled slightly, a micro-expression of disdain she didn't bother to hide. "I do hope you plan to tame that before guests arrive," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with faux concern. "It's a bit wild for a formal dinner in Greenwich. Perhaps a straightener? Or a scarf?" "My hair is fine, Eleanor," Maya replied, her tone firming just enough to draw a line. "It is clean, styled, and professional." Eleanor let out a short, cold laugh, stepping closer and patting Maya's arm with a condescension that stung worse than a slap. "Oh, don't be sensitive, dear. I'm just trying to help you fit in. It's a struggle, I know, considering where you come from." The insult hung heavy in the air, referencing a background Eleanor knew nothing about but assumed was lesser. Maya opened her mouth to speak, to perhaps finally say the words that had been brewing for months, but the sharp sound of the front chime cut through the tension. Eleanor's posture instantly changed, her face lighting up with a warmth Maya has never seen. That must be Tiffany. Finally, some proper company." Wow, the audacity of Eleanor, right? Criticizing Maya's natural hair like that. If you are still watching and you're already rooting for Maya to take back her power, please comment the number 8 below to let me know you're here with us. And if you haven't joined our family yet, I highly recommend you subscribe to Black King and hit that notification bell right now. You definitely don't want to miss the satisfaction of seeing justice served in this story. Your support helps us keep creating powerful content that informs and inspires. Now, let's continue, because this dinner party is about to get much worse. A powder blue Mercedes convertible was parked aggressively close to the front steps, and out stepped Tiffany, looking like she had just walked off a runway. Eleanor rushed past Maya, practically shoving her aside to greet the newcomer with a squeal of delight that echoed in the high ceilings of the foyer. Tiffany was everything Eleanor valued: blonde, bubbly, and born into a family whose name was on half the buildings in town. Maya stood back near the antique coat rack, feeling less like the hostess of the home she secretly owned and more like a piece of misplaced furniture. The house began to fill quickly with the murmur of wealthy guests, the air becoming thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the soft, sophisticated notes of a live jazz band playing in the corner. Amidst the sea of indifference and polite exclusion, only one person acknowledged Maya. Henry, James's father, shuffled past her in his worn tweed blazer, looking somewhat out of place in his own living room. He didn't say a word. He rarely challenged his wife publicly, but as he passed, he gave Maya's hand a secret, warm squeeze. It was a fleeting signal, a silent code that meant I see you, and I'm sorry. It was a small comfort, a singular lifeline in a room full of sharks, but it gave Maya the strength to straighten her spine and step into the living room. Eleanor was in her element, parading Tiffany through the crowd like a prize show pony. She steered the younger woman directly toward James, who was standing by the marble fireplace looking uncomfortable in his suit. "Everyone, you remember Tiffany," Eleanor announced, her voice carrying clearly over the saxophone. "The daughter I never had. Doesn't she look stunning?" She placed a manicured hand on James's back and the other on Tiffany's arm, physically pushing them together like dolls in a twisted playhouse. When a guest, a retired judge, gestured toward Maya and asked who she was, Eleanor's smile faltered. She paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to be awkward. "Oh, and this is James's friend, Maya," she said, deliberately omitting the title of wife or daughter-in-law. Tiffany turned her bright, vacuous smile toward Maya. She held out her empty champagne flute, her eyes scanning Maya's simple but elegant wool dress with a look of innocent confusion. "Oh, could you be a dear and grab me a refill? And maybe a napkin?" Tiffany chirped, her voice sickeningly sweet, treating the lady of the house like a member of the catering staff. The room seemed to hold its breath. Maya looked at James, waiting. She waited for him to correct the mistake, to claim her, to say, "Actually, this is my wife." But James looked away. He suddenly found the pattern of the Persian rug fascinating, pretending to check his watch to avoid the confrontation. He chose silence. Again. Maya took the glass, her fingers brushing against the crystal, her dignity intact but her eyes burning with a silent, controlled fire. As she turned to walk toward the bar, Eleanor intercepted her. She leaned in close, her expensive perfume cloying and suffocating, and whispered so no one else could hear, "See how well they look together? Don't get too comfortable, Maya. Temporary arrangements usually end after the holidays." The dining table in the garden was a masterpiece of crystal and gold, arranged with military precision to ensure Maya was seated as far from the family core as possible. While James sat at the head of the long banquet-style table with Tiffany giggling on his right, Maya found herself relegated to a wobbly folding table near the catering tent, sitting between a deaf elderly aunt and a pile of spare linens. The autumn wind was picking up, swirling dead leaves around her ankles, but the outdoor heaters were positioned exclusively around the main guests. Maya slipped her hand into her pocket, her fingers brushing against the cool metal of her phone. She checked the time on the screen, 5:45 p.m. Her backup plan was officially on standby, hovering just a few miles out, waiting for her command. She hoped she wouldn't have to use it, but looking at her husband's back turned toward her, she felt the inevitability of the end settling in. The main course had been cleared, replaced by tiers of delicate French pastries and elaborate fruit tarts that looked too artificial to eat. This was the moment Maya had prepared for. She stood up, smoothing her dress, and walked over to the serving station where she had placed her contribution earlier, a sweet potato pie, baked from her grandmother's secret recipe. It was rustic, radiating the warm, spicy scent of cinnamon, nutmeg, and history, a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of Eleanor's menu. Maya carried it toward the dessert table, placing it proudly amidst the eclairs and macarons. It was an olive branch, a piece of her culture offered to a family that had rejected her. The chatter died down instantly. Eleanor, who had been holding court with a glass of Chardonnay, froze. She set her glass down with a sharp clink that silenced the jazz band. All 50 guests turned to look. Eleanor walked slowly toward the dessert table, her heels sinking slightly into the manicured grass. She peered down at the pie as if it were a roadkill carcass rather than a dessert. "Maya," she said, her voice projecting clearly across the silent garden. "I told you. We serve patisserie here. We do not serve whatever this is." She pinched the edge of the pie plate with 2 fingers, holding it away from her body. "This greasy ghetto soul food? It smells like cheap oil and desperation. It clashes with the entire aesthetic I have cultivated." Maya stood her ground, her chin lifted. "It's a family tradition, Eleanor. It's called soul food because it feeds the spirit. You should try it." The guests gasped at the backtalk. Eleanor's face flushed a deep, angry red. The mask of polite society slipped completely. "I don't need to try it to know it doesn't belong in Greenwich," Eleanor hissed. She turned on her heel, marching toward the large silver trash can positioned by the catering exit. "I won't let you ruin my party with this trash," she sneered, holding the pie directly over the bin, ready to drop it. The disrespect is absolutely boiling over. If you are still watching this intense moment and finding value in this story, please comment the number 8 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't joined us yet, I strongly recommend you subscribe to Black King and turn on the notification bell right now so you don't miss a single video. Your support helps us continue creating amazing content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's continue, because Maya is about to reach her breaking point. The heavy thud of the pie hitting the bottom of the metal trash can sounded like a gavel striking a judge's desk, silencing the entire garden party. For a moment, the only sound was the wind rattling the bare branches of the oak trees and the distant hum of traffic. Eleanor stood by the bin, grabbing a linen napkin from a nearby server's tray. She began wiping her hands vigorously, scrubbing at her skin as if the mere act of holding the pie plate had contaminated her with something foul. It was a deliberate, cruel echo of how she had wiped the silverware that morning, a final signal that she was washing her hands of her daughter-in-law completely. She turned back to the frozen crowd, forcing a bright, brittle laugh that sounded bordering on hysterical. "My apologies, everyone," she announced, smoothing her dress. "We have standards to maintain. I refuse to lower them for charity cases." She turned her back on Maya, dismissing her existence entirely, but Maya did not shrink away. The time for silence had passed. Maya took a step forward, her voice not loud, but projecting with a steel core clarity that cut through the wind. "Disrespecting me is one thing, Eleanor. I have tolerated your insults for 3 years for the sake of peace. But disrespecting my heritage? Disrespecting the hands that fed generations of my family." Maya shook her head slowly, her eyes locking onto Eleanor's back. "That ends now." The defiance in Maya's voice acted like a spark in a powder keg. Eleanor spun around, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The alcohol she had been sipping all afternoon fueled her venom. "How dare you?" Eleanor spat, stepping into Maya's personal space, pointing a manicured finger toward the iron gates. "You ungrateful ghetto trash. I am done pretending. I am done tolerating your presence in my home. You don't belong here. You never have, and you never will. Get out of my house. Get out right now." The slur hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. James, pale and trembling, finally scraped together a shred of courage. He stood up, knocking his chair over. "Mom, that's enough," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "You can't just kick her out." Eleanor whipped her head toward her son, her eyes wild. "If you defend her, you leave with her," she screamed, her voice reaching a shrill crescendo that made the guests flinch. "She is a stain on this family, James. Choose now. Your legacy or this nobody." James froze, looking from his mother to his wife, paralyzed by fear. Maya didn't wait for him to decide. She realized in that moment that she didn't need saving. Maya doesn't cry. She pulls her phone from her pocket, looks Eleanor dead in the eye and says into the device, "Captain, it's time. Bring it down. Now." A low, vibrating rumble began in the distance, shaking the crystal glasses on the tables and causing the water in the pitcher to ripple. At first, the guests looked around in confusion, assuming it was thunder or perhaps a passing freight train, but the sound didn't fade, it intensified. It grew from a hum into a roar that seemed to vibrate in the very marrow of their bones. The wind, which had been a biting annoyance all afternoon, suddenly whipped into a frenzy. It tore the linen napkins from the tables and sent the elaborate floral centerpieces tumbling across the manicured grass. The mess Eleanor had been so terrified of Maya creating was now happening on a catastrophic scale, orchestrated by the very forces she had provoked. "What is happening?" Eleanor screamed over the rising noise, clutching her expensive silk shawl as her perfectly sprayed hair began to unravel in the gale. "Who is doing this?" The answer appeared in the twilight sky. Cresting over the tree line, blindingly bright landing lights cut through the gloom like the eyes of a predator. A massive, sleek Gulfstream G650, a bird of polished steel and luxury, descended toward the estate. The guests gasped, some diving under tables, others pulling out their phones in awe. With surgical precision, the jet banked and touched down on the long, private airstrip that bordered the south lawn, a feature of the historic estate that had sat unused for decades until tonight. The reverse thrusters roared, kicking up a storm of autumn leaves that pelted Eleanor's face, ruining her makeup and her dignity in one fell swoop. As the jet taxied to a halt just 50 yards from the garden party, the engines whined down to a high-pitched whistle. The cabin door folded open, revealing a soft, warm light spilling out from the interior. A uniformed flight attendant stepped onto the stairs, waiting expectantly. The contrast was absolute. The chaos of the ruined party versus the pristine order of the machine. Maya stepped away from the wobbly folding table she had been banished to. She didn't run, she didn't rush. She walked with the slow, terrifying grace of a queen reclaiming her throne. The crowd of wealthy socialites parted for her, their mouths agape, their earlier disdain replaced by a fearful respect. Maya stopped halfway to the jet and turned back to face the woman who had just tried to discard her like garbage. Eleanor was trembling, her face pale, looking small and defeated against the backdrop of the massive aircraft. Maya reached into her pocket, but instead of a weapon, she pulled out a gold-embossed business card. She flicked it through the air, and it landed at Eleanor's feet. "You called me a maid? You called me ghetto trash?" Maya's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of $1 billion valuation. "I am Tasha Maya Menro, founder and CEO of Technova Solutions, and that Jetta is mine." Eleanor stared at the card, then at the plane, her brain unable to process the shift in reality. Maya took one step toward the trembling Eleanor, and actually, Eleanor, there is one more thing you need to know about this house. Eleanor's face drained of all color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water as the realization hit her. She looked from the gold-embossed business card in the grass to the multi-million-dollar aircraft humming behind her daughter-in-law. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of Henry, her husband, clearing his throat. He stepped forward, not with his usual shuffle, but with a strange, relieved posture. "I tried to warn you, El," he said, his voice rough but steady. He looked at Maya with pride. "I've known for months. Maya bought the note on this house 6 months ago when the bank was about to foreclose on us. She paid off every cent of your debt anonymously. She wanted to see if you had enough kindness in your heart to treat her like family without a price tag attached." The guests gasped, whispering furiously among themselves. The wealthy matriarch was actually destitute, living on the charity of the very woman she had just abused. Eleanor's knees seemed to give way. She stumbled toward Maya, her hands reaching out in a desperate, pleading gesture. "Maya, darling," she stammered, her voice shaking, the venom replaced by a pathetic, cloying sweetness. I didn't know. I was just so stressed with the party preparations. You know how it is. We're family. I didn't mean any of it." Maya didn't flinch. She didn't step back, nor did she reach out to steady the older woman. She simply watched Eleanor unravel with a detached calmness. "You didn't know I was rich," Maya corrected her, her voice cool and final. "You knew I was human. You knew I was your son's wife. And that wasn't enough for you to treat me with basic dignity. You judged me by my skin, my hair, and my silence. Now you can judge me by my eviction notice." James, who had been standing frozen near the table, finally moved. He pulled his arm away from Tiffany, who was now looking at the jet with greedy calculation. He walked across the grass, past his sobbing mother, and took Maya's hand. "I'm sorry it took me this long," he whispered, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm coming with you. I'm done being her puppet." Maya squeezed his hand, accepting the apology, though they both knew he had work to do to earn back her full trust. She turned to Eleanor one last time. "You have 30 days to vacate my property. Start packing." As the jet takes off into the night sky, Maya looks down at the shrinking mansion, realizing that dignity is the one luxury money can't buy. You have to be born with it.